Welcome everyone. Uh, Welcome everyone to the webinar on redefining your infrastructure with Linux migration. So today we are going to discuss about. So these are the agenda that we have. So the first thing that we are going to discuss about what is the objective of the webinar, then why anyone will look into the migration strategy, what is the disadvantage that we have in on-prem, and why we are going to move our all the workloads to Azure, and what are the key advantages that we are going to get it, what are the security features that we are going to get it when we are migrating from on-prem to cloud or specifically Azure. Okay, and what are the other benefits like flexibility, scalability, and cost efficiency or cost optimization, that perspective. Then we will discuss about the real-time on-prem challenges that every organization usually faces, and why Quadrant. So we will discuss about whenever we are doing a migration, why anyone will look for uh, the partner who can do the migration for us. Okay, so here we are from the Quadrant, so we can discuss about that. And in last session that we are last presentation, so we'll discuss about all the questionnaires whatever will be there in the discussion chat. So today's speakers, myself Jitendra Sanda. I am a senior cloud architect at Quadrant Technology. I have almost 15 years of experience in cloud modern app development, cloud migration, and proposing solution to the cloud adoption. Okay, with me, my colleague Saurabh Gupta will be discussing his expertise on that. So let's talk about the scenario that why anyone will look for the migration. Okay, so the migration, whenever, what are the key benefits that we are going to get it if we are migrating from on-prem to Azure. The key benefit that we are going to get it is like there is no hardware procurement required if we are migrating from the on-prem to cloud. Whereas like if we have anything on the on-prem, so there is a process of procurement process and all these things which will not be there. Okay, the second thing is that the availability. So it's a geopolitical scenario. So what happen whenever we have any on-prem infrastructure and all these things, so we need a global availability. So for global availability I need to have multiple data center across the different regions, so that we will get it at a scale level if you're migrating from on-prem to cloud or Azure specifically. Okay, and similarly the disaster recovery for business continuity, we need a business continuity process should be implemented. So for that we can easily adapt that using the disaster recovery availability in the Azure. Then during through automation we can do the faster deployment. Okay, so whereas couple of scenarios that we are going to get it out of it is like in as part of infrastructure we will get a low cost, okay, or cost optimized resources at Azure. Maintenance, so whenever we have any hardware, then we need to do continuous update, manual patching, hardware upgradation, and all these things, which will be taken care by the Azure behind the scene for us. Okay, so because this is being managed by the Microsoft, so which will be automatically taken care. So whereas the deployment, any hardware upgradation and the code deployment and all these things will be taking in on-prem infrastructure, it will take days and months. Whereas within the Azure infrastructure, we can have an automation pipeline through which we can do the deployment within a seconds or minutes. Okay, so that's the benefit that we are going to get it out of it. So whereas the this last point that we have, if you want for any latest technology or innovation, so in that case we need to upgrade our infrastructure according to, and we need to purchase the license for that. Whereas if we are in Azure, the services we need to use it or subscribe for that, and we are good to go. Okay, so these are the benefits that we are going to get it if we are migrating from on-prem to Azure. So these are the benefits that we are going to get out of it. So agility is a business imperative. So any business that currently we are doing, so it should be adaptable to new technologies. If we are not operating ourselves with the latest technology nowadays, like everyone is hearing about AI. Okay, so if any company is not adapting that AI, then it is like it's not in a front door. Okay, so it cannot compete with the competitor that available in the market. So it should be AI ready and cloud native ready and all these things. So this should be scale fast. This should have a flexibility to adapt new technology and all these things. So this is part of agility, should be a part of business. Okay. Yeah. So as we are using the Azure infrastructure, so the cost will be definitely reduced. So we'll get the appropriate some of the key statistics that we got it from the. So can we move to next slide, please? So yeah. So as we discussed, so the most of the organization, they have to focus on their infrastructure. Instead of infrastructure, they should focus on the application development, their business, and all these things. So where Azure will take care of all the infrastructure and their control out of it with the minimal pricing. Okay. So and though it is a cloud environment, so we will have our AI infrastructure ready as well. Whenever we are subscribing, we will be ready for the AI driven application. Okay. So here are the key strategies, key statistics that we have. So whenever we are going to get in terms of ROI and all these things. So if you see that if we are talking about any cloud foundation AI ready application, so which will be 284 percentage, 284 percentage ROI in the Azure services. If you are talking about security, then 117 ROI if you are using Microsoft Defender. Okay. And cost and performance with respect to Ubuntu or specifically Linux distribution, then we will get a 306 percentage in 3-year RI. Okay, so we'll discuss about what is the RI plan and all these things that we will discuss about. Okay. And we will get a Azure Arc. So if you are accommodating or we are integrating with the Azure Arc, which is a hybrid cloud platform with respect to your Azure and on-prem and all these things, so then we will get a 30% of IT productivity. So the management and all these things can be done from the Azure Arc perspective. So that will be 30% reduction in the pricing things. Okay. Can you move to next slide, please? Yeah. So let's talk about why open source. Okay. So everyone is talking about nowadays is open source, open source. So why there is a craze about open source and how much Microsoft is investing on that and all this. So if everyone is heard about so Git. So Git is the open source community, which is a code source code versioning tool and all these things. And GitHub is a tool which is hosting their code source code versioning. Right. So everyone is heard about it. It is a open source, but Microsoft acquired that uh, last 10 years, okay, before. So because Microsoft is heavily investing on the open source, they wanted to contribute to the open source community and all these things, and it is heavily investing on multiple areas like, okay, Git. If you see that there are 60k plus Microsoft developers are actively working on the GitHub in different projects. Okay. And my top three contributors are already, if anyone heard about CNCF, which is a cloud native cloud platform. Okay. So there Microsoft is heavily investing on that, which is like Kubernetes and all these things. Okay. So a couple of projects are related to Kubernetes. Cloud native is Kubernetes, Mobi, then CNAP, and all these things. Okay, Helm and everyone. So everyone might be heard about it. So and the Linux distribution, Microsoft also works with Linux distribution because it has so many experience on the operating system from the Windows side. So they are also heavily investing on the Linux also because it's a backbone of the Azure. Okay. Can you move to the next slide, please? Yeah. So if you see that 65 percentage, more than 65 percentage of Microsoft customers are already running on the top of Linux. Okay, which is already running on the top of Azure. So that's where I was talking about. So Microsoft heavily invested on the Linux because Microsoft core customers are working on the Azure on the Linux side. Okay, just a minute. So there are a couple of Microsoft heavily invested on the multiple services like the Microsoft, a couple of Microsoft services are already running on the top of Linux. So what are those? So Xbox, anyone ever heard about it? Then Azure Kubernetes service. So similarly, there are a couple of services which are already running on the top of Linux services, and Microsoft has its own Linux distribution, which is called as Azure Linux. Okay, and Azure AKS. So everything on the AKS, backed by Azure Linux operating system. Okay, and what are the other services? So everyone heard about ChatGPT, OpenAI, which is a Microsoft product itself. So which is running on the top of Linux on Azure. Okay, and here are the couple of open source softwares which Microsoft either contributed directly or through their community partners. So if I wanted to migrate to cloud, so what are the steps that I need to have? So there are different way. So Microsoft is saying that okay, either you can do by yourself. I will give you the second one is the use the guidance where Microsoft provides the best practices, the frameworks, how to migrate it, and then there is a option through the partners. Okay, so here if you see that there are some tools like as I was talking about Azure Migrate, Azure DMS, there are a couple of tools through which you can do the migration if you wanted to do by yourself. If you don't know how to do, what are the steps to be followed and all these things, Microsoft also provided the frameworks called as CAF, Cloud Adoption Framework, and Well Iterated Framework, through which you can do the migration. It's a best practices to be followed and do your migration by yourself. Still, if you are having some doubt and you wanted to connect with the partners and get the things done, then Microsoft has a partner program through which you can do the Microsoft Azure migration. Okay, any migration from infrastructure on-prem to cloud migration through the partner as well. So that's called as Azure Migrate and Modernization program. Okay. So, what are the security challenges that everyone usually face in the on-prem infrastructure, and what are the solution for that in the Azure? So, if you see that on the first top priority is the physical access to the server. So, if we are in on-prem infrastructure, we can get directly access to the data center, or we can have access to the physical server. And the tedious task usually it will be is a manual patching and updating the security patches. Okay, so any Windows updates or Linux updates, their security patches need to be done manually, and then only it will be taken care. Okay, and then similarly, that if we have any hardware like security hardwares like firewalls and antivirus software, that too need to be updated. So, and for that we need to get the license and all these things. Okay, and for every organization, the security operation should have the procedure to be defined, and it should be regulated or approved or compliant with respect to the SOC compliant things. Okay, certificate. Whereas all these things as part of Azure, we will get it free of cost. Okay, because it does follow the principle of zero trust architecture. So zero trust architecture will be never trust. Always validate. Okay, so that's the principle that Microsoft always follow. And Microsoft has several security tools that through which we can uh, uh, get out get these security patches updated thoroughly. And it is by design, it will be automatically available for us. Couple of services will be available for us like built-in DDoS attack. Okay, and whenever you have any services on Azure, so we will have a Azure AD and conditional access configured for the organization level. And as I said, so there are certain certifications required. So Microsoft already compliant with 100 plus certification like HIPAA certification, ISO certification, GDPR compliant. All these compliance are already by default. We will get it free of cost. Okay. Yeah. So secure Microsoft 2023 Microsoft come up with a security feature initiative, which always have a thought process like secure by design, secure by default, and secure in the operation. So it is an initiative taken by Charlie Bell, okay, who is a EVP of the Microsoft security. He said that okay, it is a fundamental rights of the customer who are coming to the cloud technology. They should have the security uh, as a fundamental activity. Okay, so that's why they consider this as a part of security practices, and every services will design with the security is the first priority in the cloud environment. So that's why if you see that any Azure services, it's by default the security is a first priority for all the services. Okay. Yeah. So if you see that what are the current limitation in the on-prem infrastructure, if you have, so basically physical access server, Okay, so though we are directly controlling this physical server in our on premises, so we have all the controls that we have. Okay, then manual patching. So similar things like we have to upgrade our security softwares, okay, antivirus softwares and all these things as part of Windows patches and Defender and all these things. Similarly, any hardware updates like firewall and your uh, firewall and gateway and all these things. That should, if it is outdated, then we need to purchase the license for that. We need to purchase the hardware upgraded versions. All these things we need to take care. And similarly, as I said, so the all the data centers should be audited thoroughly using the third-party vendors as a SOC compliant. Okay, so these are the key areas where on-prem is not scalable for us. Then what are the Azure security frameworks that by default Microsoft come up with? So if you see on the right side, there is a on-prem, all the things. If you see that there are three areas that who is responsible for what. So if you see that below, Microsoft customer and shared. So it means like some of the things are need to be taken care by Microsoft. Some of the things will be taken care by the customer. Okay, and on the right side, if you see that on-prem, we have all the resources need to be managed by the customer itself, whereas there are three models that Microsoft provided: infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a services. So these are the key areas where couple of things Microsoft will take care, and some of the things which need to be taken care by the like customer itself. So if you see that the security level and the best practices level, infrastructure as a service as having more granular access level and more maintainability. Whereas if you go into software as a service, which is a SaaS model, so most of the things need to be taken care by the Microsoft. Only the identity need to be configured by the which is a shared mode. Some of the things Microsoft will define, some of the things will be configured by the customer, and all the data part will be taken care by the customer. Okay, so these are the key areas where we, and if you are talking about continuous security monitor and all these things as we discussed, so Microsoft platform itself is a, by design it is having the security feature in place, so it will continuously monitor and it will have a different mechanism to alert you, get a notification out of it and all these things. So, and Microsoft also have the global threat intelligence integration, where every seconds and minutes they will get billions of events happening in the entire cloud or enter the world. So that level of intelligence data and all these things are integrated with this system, which we cannot get it in the on-prem at all. Okay. Yeah. So as I was talking about zero trust architecture, so Microsoft always believe on this: never trust, always verify. So anyone is accessing the resource, doesn't matter you are in on-prem or you are in a same network or wherever, it should be verify your authentication or authorization. Then only it will allow you access the resources. So that's how it is. And so identity is a primary security parameter, and the it depend upon the authorization that you have. If you have the authorization, if you have an authorization, then only you will able to access the resources. If you don't have, then you won't able to do anything. Okay, so that's how. And continuous verification and validation. So behind the scene, if you are already working for last 10 to 15 minutes, then the single sign-on mechanism will tell. Okay, so it will ask you about the verification, or behind the scene it will check your authentication, refresh the token and all these things. Can you move to next slide, please? So these are the some security tools that Microsoft has. One is the Microsoft Defender for Cloud. So Microsoft Defender for Cloud is a tool which is cloud native to all the application Microsoft has. So just like your VM, if you have a VM or you have a database, so we can just configure these services with a click. Okay, so if I wanted to enable the Cloud Defender for this, then I just wanted to enable that checkbox, then we are good to go. And it does support multi-cloud also. We can configure, if I have a multi-cloud application, I wanted to monitor everything for using Azure Defender, so I can enable that for everywhere. Okay, so that's also there. And Azure does, it's also support DevSec operations, so developer development security and operation solutions also. So there are couple of recommendation Microsoft will provide, and we need to, it's just recommendation engine. On the top of that, we need to implement that. Okay, and it will show that score also, uh, if we are going through the scanning of our entire infrastructure. So Microsoft Sentinel is another tool where it works in two different mechanism. One is the SIEM, another is the SOAR. So SIEM is a like mechanism through which it can identify the threats. SOAR is a mechanism through which it can respond back, or it will act accordingly to the severity of the things. If you see that on the right side, there is some severity. Okay, it is a new type of it, that it didn't came across our infrastructure, so it is considered as a new. So in the image that already describing about it. Okay, and it is backed by AI. So if it is manually to be handled, then it will be too tough for me, am I right? So in a particular day I might getting hundreds of events. So in that event I need to identify which is like high, which is low priority, severity, and all these things which might came before, and all these things. So but though it is AI powered, so automatically it will alert you. Okay, so it will automatically grouping as a part of cloud infrastructure instead of your particular infrastructure. Okay, so and if you wanted to integrate the incident management and all this, any third party tool integration also as a incident management notification service and all these things, that also can be possible as a part of seamless integration. Yeah. So Microsoft Purview is a data governance platform where it talks about within the organization. If you have any breaches somewhere, your code or your file has contained some username, password, credentials, and all these things, that should be avoided. Am I right? So for that, Microsoft Purview is come up with a data governance policy where it talks about scanning your infrastructure with the data and all these things. That one is like about your infrastructure, whereas this is about your data files and code files, the resources that we have. So it will give you the detailed information about where the uh, glitches are there and which is vulnerable and all these things. And on the top of that, it's also AI driven. So it provides all the insights about your data files and all these things, and you can get a risk and compliance for that. So DDoS attack. So Microsoft, as I told, so Microsoft always come up with a built-in some features. So like DDoS attack is like someone is trying to access your infrastructure and want your network down. So in that case, what happened? Denial DDoS attack will be coming into picture. So anyone is trying to access your IP address or website or any resources in a frequently with a time interval and all these things from a single IP address and everything. So what it does is like it will automatically identify and react automatically and block it. So that feature is there by default by monitoring the traffic from the cloud. Okay, so it is a application layer protection, just like your network layer and all these things. So application layer protection, it is there. So yeah, so Microsoft Entra ID, people might heard about Azure AD. So it is the new name of the Azure AD. So Azure AD is now renamed as a Microsoft Entra ID, which provides the granular access of the each resources. So if anyone wants to access any of the resources in the within the Azure cloud or your on-prem cloud infrastructure, anything. So what it does is like it will give you the conditional access for the each resources. Okay, it is provided by default. It will come up with a cloud native identity feature, but we can configure it as a granular level. Okay, so here as part of that, usually we are using our username and password as a authentication mechanism, but Microsoft added one more layer of authentication, which is a multi-factor authentication, through which what we can do is like we can have a SMS based authentication, mobile phone based authentication, or Microsoft has its own tool called as Microsoft Authenticator, through which you can get a token, through which you can do the validation. So that's also there. Okay, so by default, we will get those functionality as part of this Microsoft Entra ID, and where we can do the conditional access for each user, and we'll able to get the things. So as we mentioned, so Microsoft Azure infrastructure is compliant enough, and it has almost 100 plus certification. Out of that, couple of our year we are mentioning as part of like, okay, globally it is ISO certified. In ISO there are two persons we have mentioned, 27001 to 27018, and SOC compliant, SOC 123 all, and CIS benchmark. For healthcare application, it is HIPAA compliant and HIPAA trust, high trust. Okay, and US government also using the Azure cloud. Okay, so as part of that, they are compliant with respect to FedRAMP, CGIS, and ITR. So these are the couple of certifications that already Microsoft compliant with enough to start with. So key takeaways of this discussion. So as we discussed, so Azure is natively secure by design. Okay, it usually follows the zero trust principle. It is native enough to do the automation instead of because if you are doing any automation, then there will be a human errors, a reduction of the human errors. Am I right? So Microsoft uses its own threat intelligence system to detect and seam and soar, so which where it will detect the threats and it will act accordingly. And though as part of that compliance issue, so Microsoft data center is already compliant with all the certifications, so there is nothing to worry about it. We can consider ourselves also compliant. And security at scale, we cannot accommodate in our environment at all. Okay, because that level of when I was talking about, so Microsoft threat intelligence system, it has billions of events at a particular minutes or second, so which we cannot get it in our on-prem infrastructure. Though it is AI driven, so the more data that you have, the more narrow access that you have. Okay, so these are the key takeaways for the Azure adoption. Yeah. So let's talk about flexibility, cost, and ease of use. Okay. So how flexible Azure environment is. So Microsoft or Azure provides different varieties of operating system, different variety locations, different size of the VMs, and all these things. Where we can discuss about what are the OS. So Microsoft has a marketplace through which we can get any flavor of operating system. Doesn't matter it is a Linux distribution or Windows operating system. We can get all these operating system available with us. Similarly, as Microsoft is available in 60 plus regions, so we can avail our resources at any places. Okay, it doesn't matter it is in Africa, Europe, or America, or Asia, doesn't matter. And Microsoft also provide different SKU size through which we can decide our own size of the VMs. Okay, and at any point of time we can scale it up and scale it down as per our physical need. Okay, so whenever there is a huge traffic, I can scale it up to scale up or scale out according to my use case. Okay, and as I mentioned, so Microsoft has different flavor of models or compute models, which is called as infrastructure as a service, PaaS service, and a SaaS service, platform as a service, and software as a service. So there are different depending upon the needs or the management features. So we can use the different models. Okay, so cost efficiency point of view. So though we are not worried about our hardware infrastructure and all these things, so there is no capex. Okay, Microsoft provided different. We are talking about cost efficiency. So we have. So if you are going with a pay as you go, the more I am using, I have to pay more. Okay, so that's the model. So if I'm using for 2 hours, then I have to pay only for 2 hours. Whereas the on-prem infrastructure, it's not possible. Am I right? Because I already purchased the hardware. If I'm using or not, doesn't matter for me. So that's a model where we are talking about pay as you go. As much as I'm using, I'm going to pay for that. Okay. So the alternative approach is like reserve instance. So if I know about it, my infrastructure is going to run for the production environment as a 24/7 and a yearly plan, then I can use the reserve instance plan. So there are 1 year RI and the 2 3 year RI. So depending upon the RI plan, then the pricing will be always like 30% reduction as compared to the pay as you go. So if I'm using pay as you go, if it is $100, then in 1 year RI it will be $70, and if it is a 3 year RI, it might be $60. It's just like a number I'm telling. Okay, spot VMs. So it depend upon the availability of the resources. It will be cheaper, but it will be used as a developer environment. Wherever I need a VM for 1 or 2 hours, I can use a spot VMs for that. Okay, and Microsoft also provides a alerting tool where I can specify my budget alerts. So if I'm going beyond that, it will give me a notification. It will tell me that okay, you are using your whatever budget is there, you are going beyond that. All these things are already there. Okay, and when I'm talking about easy of use, so Microsoft provide different way to provision your infrastructure, manage your infrastructure, and all these things. So one of them is like Azure portal. We can go to Azure portal UI and you can do all these things. Similarly, I can do it using PowerShell. I can use Azure CLI for that. Okay, and these are the things like through which I can manage and provision my resources. Similarly, if I wanted to migrate my resources, Microsoft also provided some guidance and tools for doing the migration also. So if I have a infrastructure, I can use Azure Migrate to do the migration. If I have an application to be recovered or like redeployed from on-prem to cloud, then I can use Azure Site Recovery. And all these things, code deployment for deployment perspective. If I wanted to, I have some code I wanted to deploy it to the cloud. Then what I can do, I can have a CI/CD pipeline configured through which seamlessly it can do the deployment to the cloud itself. So that's called as ease of use. So there are varieties of services Microsoft provide to do the things for you easy. Okay. Yeah. So why AMD? Everyone heard about, okay, there are two types of processors are there. Either it is a Intel version or uh, AMD version. Okay. So AMD processors usually works on the top of a multi-threading concept. So here, how to identify that which one is like AMD processor and all these things. As I mentioned before, so there is a SKU through which we can provision the size of the uh, uh, compute resources. Like compute resource consist of your RAM and CPU combination. Okay, so if you see here, so every SKU, like on the right side, virtual machine series BASB2, okay, DASB5, all these are like A B C D. These are the different uh, series, like, okay, either it is a general purpose or it is a memory optimized kind of things. Then A highlights to AMD processor, then V2, V5, V6, all these are related to your version of the processor. Either the latest, the more number, it is more latest. Okay, if it is V5 and V4, then V5 is always latest as compared to the V4 version. Okay, so similarly there are couple of things, and some of the exceptions are there, because when the old systems are there, there is no A attached to it. But nowadays they are following the A with respect to the so BASV2, DASV2. So these are the standards now they are following as a part of AMD and Intel. So if there is no A, then BSB2 is a your Intel version, whereas BASB2 is a AMD version of it. Okay, but configuration will be the same. Can you? So these are the, as I was talking about, there are different series of the workloads. So if it depend upon your workloads and all these things or use case. So if it is general purpose, so we have D series, E series, and F series. Okay, so these are like where we are talking about DALSB6. Okay, and DSB6, all these things are there. E series is there, F series is there, B series. So B series is usually bustable. So if it is going beyond that, it will shut down. So that's how it is. And high performance computing. So if you want a HPC server, okay, where we need a highly scalable services and all this thing, then we can go with the H series. So if we have AIML or computing related things, then we can go with the N series. Okay, N series with the ND and all these things. Where if we want storage optimized, okay, so which will be used for the database and analytics or data warehouse kind of things, then we can go with the L series. And if anyone looking for the virtualization, so if you see that N is there in the both the places, either it is AI related or it is a visualization. Why? The reason behind this is N series is used for the data computing and graphics related. So though behind the scene AIML uses the graphics as a part of that, okay, or it is a part of gaming and all these things. So that's why N is there in the both the places. And there is a confidential computing part which always talks about, okay, so in the processor itself your data is getting encrypted. Okay, so there are two types of encryption. One is the application level encryption, where whenever the data is getting copied and all these things, then only the data will be encrypted. The second one is the whenever it is getting processed or under transit, so that time also the CPU has the ability to do the encryption at that level. Okay, so whenever the data is getting processed, at that time also the encryption or the confidentiality should be maintained. So that's why there is a confidential computing which is coming up with a DC series instead of D. So D is a part of general use, but on the top of that they are adding as a DC. Then A is always there because it is a AMD processor. That's all. So these are the some of the examples that we have. If you are running with the AMD and Linux performance, what is the performance? What is the pricing? All these things are there is some comparison with respect to that. Okay, so if I am using DSB SB5, okay, uh, then the performance will be same with respect to Linux and all these things. If you are using the AMD processor, then there will be a 0.1%. Okay, and if you are using the F series with respect to the AMD, then there is a 0.4% increase. Okay, with respect to the performance and all this. Similarly, there is a cost comparison also. Okay, so if let's talk about a little bit on the OSS database side. So everyone knows about the operating open source databases, which is called as OSS. Okay, so Postgres is a OSS database. If you are running anything on the top of Azure with respect to AMD and the Postgres on the top of that, then we are going to get it the performance with respect to the pricing. Okay, here is the some comparison. So if you are running something on the top of E series, then 1 is to like 1.15 with respect to 1.27, and if you are running on the E16 A series, then we are going to get it 1.12 with respect to 1.224. This is the price respect to performance. Okay. So yeah. So what are the real challenges that everyone usually face in the on-prem hard, and how Azure resolves this? So as I was talking about, so every time, so there is a high availability zone. So Microsoft usually separate their data center into different high availability zone. Okay, so every region, so everyone is talking about. Okay, let's see, there is a region in the India. India, there are three regions. One is the Central India, then South India, and your central South India. So if you're talking about these two regions, so now within a region also they have different high availability zone. So it might be in the same building, it might be in the different building altogether, and there are different power consumption units and all these things. Okay, and also it does provide two different concepts like blue green deployment kind of things, which talks about either it is a update domain or fault domain depending upon the different workload and different availability. Okay, so Microsoft provide all the solution for us. So there is if a data center, usually any on-prem infrastructure, we have a single power unit for that. If there is any issue with the power units, then entire data center will be gone. The same thing will not be there for Azure, because Azure provides different availability zone. If there is any power, it is one availability zone, then the other availability zone is there to support you. Okay, similarly, if you wanted to scale it up or scale it down, okay, and load balance all these things. So Microsoft on-prem infrastructure, it is too tough for us to accommodate new hardwares and operate it. Okay, whereas Azure automatically provide that if you are configuring with the some filters or key parameters. Okay, so if you are saying that 20% beyond, if it is going beyond 20%, then it should be scaled down. If it is going beyond 60% of CPU utilization, then it should be scale it up. So all these features we can just configure with some configuration changes, and it can do the things for us. So similarly, Azure site recovery, if there is any hardware failure, then how I can replicate my current site to another site, or geo redundancy. So though Microsoft Azure is already available in multi-region or multi-geo platform area, so then the data is getting copied to multiple geo redundant. Okay, so it can be available in geo redundant. If there is some issues also, we can use Azure site recovery to replicate our current workload to other region also. Then compliance thing, so if I have to do all the compliance, then all the certificates or third party validation should be done in my infrastructure. Instead of that, though Microsoft already has their compliance things by default, so no need to worry about it. Okay, so backup and backup and restore also. Similarly, we can have a backup strategy. Okay, if we are doing it in on prem, so we can have a backup strategy as a manual or offline version, whereas Microsoft has a backup strategy at a particular time interval, or you can do your on demand and all these things. And there is a retention period also. So after certain time interval, because of your storage is constant, you can delete it for 30 days. You can configure the retention policy. So after 30 days, the old backups will be deleted and new backup will be added. Okay, so similarly, dependency mapping. So you don't know what are the architecture diagram that you have, because when the infrastructure grows, so it is too tough to manage and understand the architecture, network architecture diagram, or your resource planning and all these things. Whereas Microsoft already have a dependency assessment diagram through which we can understand what is the network topology and all these things. So similarly, if I wanted to increase my storage, so I need to add more and more SSDs and into my infrastructure, whereas I can get that in a scale using Azure Blob or Azure File Share within a minute. Okay, so aging of the operating system. So if I wanted to have a multiple version of the operating system and different vendor of things, then it is too tough to get the things from a single vendor. Whereas I can get the same thing as I mentioned before. So I can go to Azure Marketplace and I can get any version, any operating system from there. So Azure Marketplace provides all the operating system, and it can have a containerization as well. So now let's talk about, if I wanted to start with, now we understood till now, okay, what are the benefits that I'm going to get it about Azure. So let's talk about how, if I wanted to migrate, I decided to migrate, but how to do it, or what are the steps are followed, then what are the best practices need to be followed, and what are the tools are available. All this, let's discuss about, explore that. Okay, so whenever we are planning to do a migration, so there are different processes or steps are there. The first step will be discover and assessment. So in the discovery phase, we need to first identify what is the best tool for this, and then we will do the assessment and we will get an assessment report. On the basis of that assessment report, we will identify how to do the migration. Is it a lift and shift, or it is a refactoring? We need to do the modernization. What should be the best icing model that I need to follow, which is the region which I need to use. All these things will get it. Okay, after the planning, then we need to do the migration. So as part of that migration, we will use those tools, identify tools as part of discovery page, and we'll do the migration. After the migration, we can do some test migration. We can have multiple round of testing. Once it is done, then after the migration completed, then we will go for the optimization and monitoring phase. So in that, or modernization phase, so in that, what will happen, we will see that where the consumption can be optimized, we will get the advisory of it, we will get the so many suggestion out of it, and then we can do that. Similarly, if I wanted to modernize, or like I need to monitor the services, there are several services like Azure monitoring monitor, Azure cost management tools, budgeting tools. All these things can be useful. Okay, so here are a couple of tools that we can use it as part of migration or modernization phase. So one is like Azure Migrate, Azure DMS, Azure Site Recovery, Azure Arc. Okay, for hybrid cloud infrastructure, where we should have some of the resources in on-prem and some of the resources can be in Azure cloud, and we can have code deployment strategy like using ARM template or Bicep or Terraform. Okay, which is automation agent through which we can do the deployment, infrastructure provisioning. Can you move to the next slide, please? So these are the typical journey if anyone wants to do the migration from on-prem to cloud. So these are the couple of things which we need to follow, as we discussed already. So there is a discovery phase. So in discovery phase, we will discover all the all the infrastructure assets within their on-prem infrastructure. Then discovery phase. Then we will do the assessment. So in the assessment phase, we will get the readiness of the infrastructure. So is that infrastructure is too old, or can I move it or not? What is the corresponding queues? All these infrastructure information we'll get it in the assessment phase. So after the assessment, then we'll get a business case, okay, which is a TCO analysis. Okay, total cost of for organization. So that details we will get it. So once we got this, then we need to present it to the management to get a approval for that. Once we have a approval, then we will prepare the infrastructure, so in the cloud. Okay, so as you see that there is a gray area for this. So during migration we will create a plan, and in the plan we need to decide how to make it. So in this in this plan stage we will use the Microsoft best practices things, which comes under cloud CAF and well architected framework. Okay, cloud adoption framework, and we need to follow that, where we will talk about how many webs should be there, what should be the landing zone, what should be the security management groups, and all these things we will discuss about it as part of plan. Then once we are done with the plan, then we will execute the plan, okay, which is called as a migration. So either we can do it as a part of rehost, okay, or we can do it as a modernized step, okay, or as it is fetch. So all these things we will decide, and we will do the deployment or migration. It can be a single bulk deployment, or it can be a web plan. So depending upon the organization strategy, okay, I will need to move some of the resources first. We'll see the optimization, we will see the things, then we will go with the different waves. So that's a web based approach. Some of the organization they wanted to migrate, no, no, I need to do all the migration at one shot. So that's a one time deployment. So that's how it is. Then it is a continuous process that we need to manage, we need to optimize all these things. Okay, we need to configure the cloud native features, like, okay, as I was discussing about the cloud defender, I need to use AI features on the top of that, which is a sentinel. Okay, and I can use all these things as part of management, because these are not there in on-prem, where I'm just integrating that as part of management phase. But next step, is that stopping us? No, we need to look at the modernization also, because now we are saying that, okay, we are in Azure, but we are not using most of the services of Azure. Example, we are not using Azure function, which is a serverless functionality. Okay, we are not using AI functionality, like, okay, PG vector, if it is a database is in Postgres, so we are not using the Postgres vector things. Okay, PG vector for AI ready or RAG solutions. So all these things we need to look at after the as part of the modernization phase. So this is a continuous process. Okay, once it is migrated, then we can leverage these services to make it more modernized and more cloud ready, as well as modern application ready. Okay, readiness. So, can I do the migration from on-prem only? No, it's not. Okay, so I can do the migration from on-prem as well as any cloud to Azure. Okay, so using Azure Migrate. So if you see that on the left side, on-prem is there. There is a AWS. There is a Hyper-V. It can be possible from GCP as well. So we can migrate from anywhere to Azure. And these are the right side. There are some of the services which we can do the migration to Azure itself. And if you any customer is looking for okay, so I need a hybrid approach. Okay, some of the services should be there in on-prem or any other cloud, and some of the new services I just wanted to provision in Azure. So that also they are possible, which is called as a hybrid approach. If you see that on the below, there is a Azure Arc, which supports hybrid cloud operation or hybrid approach, through which we can integrate other services with respect to Azure services. Okay, and the management and monitoring functionality can be useful from the Azure itself. So Azure Local and Azure Arc Center is there, through which we can do the hybrid mode. So these are the couple of attributes or proposition customer value that we are going to get out of it if we are using Azure Migrate for our migration journey. Okay. So as I mentioned, so we can do the agentless discovery of the all the IT infrastructure. So there is no need. We'll just install the appliance on the Azure. Okay, and it will do the things for us. It will do the entire assessment of the infrastructure, and it will give you the assessment report for that. And out of that, we can get the business case and a tissue analysis. Then we can get the what is the depth of it, how much possibility of your modernization and all these things. And we can have a different partners to help us in the using use the migrate to migrate your infrastructure. So the couple of value addition that we are going to get out of it, we will get the experience of, if you are using the Azure Arc as part of hybrid, so you can get the on-prem infrastructure as well as your cloud features, both the things in parallel. Okay. Yeah, so if you see that, so in the Azure migrate page, so it is there are three approaches that we can do. Okay, so by default, if anyone having mixed servers, like okay, I have some web application, I have some file servers, I have some database and all these things, I can do that using the first option, which is called as servers, database and web apps all together at one shot. Okay, and the second one that we have is okay, I have only database to be migrated, so that also I can do it using database only approach. So Azure migrate having different flavors of the operation to be done, and you can do the migration for that. Okay, so here you can modernize to PaaS services as well as SaaS services for the best ROI. So Microsoft comes up with some new releases. Okay, so there are flexible discovery option is there. Okay, and it has a dependency analysis where we are talking about which application is depending upon what, and you can get a generate a hierarchical architecture diagram or graph diagram kind of things, which will talks about your dependency diagram. Okay, and you can group the workloads, like some of them are like okay, it's a database workload, it is a production workload, or it is a this kind of things also you can do the grouping. Okay, okay, so the next thing is that okay, if I wanted to do a arc, so arc is a hybrid approach, so where you can do the hybrid approach, and you have a Azure local, which is a Azure stack. Earlier it was called as Azure stack, so through which you can run that Azure infrastructure features in your on-premise infrastructure itself. It does support multiple operating system, Ubuntu, Red Hat, SUSE, okay, Rocky license, Linux, all these things. Can we go to the next? Okay, so yeah, as I mentioned, so Azure Linux provides, though it is a there is a hybrid approach also. So through which, if you have already license purchased from the different vendor, so you have a Azure hybrid approach through which you can just use your existing license to get a hybrid, Azure hybrid approach. If you see on the right side, so there is a 34K license cost which we saved if I have already existing license. So that's where, if you are using your existing license into your Azure, there will be a drastical licensing cost reduction in the Azure infrastructure as well. Can you go to the next slide, please? So yeah, as I was talking about, okay, so dependency injection. So if you see this diagram, it talks about okay, app one having a interlink between multiple operating system, it is running on multiple prods, okay, or it is having a access to some of the other services. So this is the dependency analysis that we can get out of it if we are doing a scanning for that infrastructure. So this is a simulation of one of the sample that we have done it for our customer. Yeah. So if you see here, so there is something called as a migration strategy that okay, it also talks about how much percentage that it is possible to do as it is, okay, or it can be re-platform. So if something is hosted on the VM, if I wanted to migrate to app services, can it be possible? Yes, it is saying that strategy as well. Okay, it is saying that you can go with as a lift and shift, or you can go to the PaaS services as well. It depends upon the workload that you have in your on-prem infrastructure. Can you move to the next slide, please? Yeah, so this is just like some of the examples that we have done it. So if you see that the scanning level, it can scan up to 21,000, which we did it for our customer. So which is like 21,388 server has been scanned, and out of that 64 servers are already running SQL server and web server, so like that only. And we have multiple groups for that. So these are the some numbers that we got it. Okay, and some are running both Windows and Linux. Some are unknown because it might be running on only NFS server or something like that. So file server and all this, so that's why it is not showing that what is the operating system distribution. Okay. Yeah, so we can do the migration from, as I said, so we can do the migration for Windows, we can do the Linux, it can be hosted on Hyper-V or it can be hosted on the VMware, doesn't matter. We can do that for everyone. Okay, can you move to the next slide, please? Yeah, these are the some features of the Azure Arc which we already discussed. Yeah, so micro Azure Defender for cloud, so it can support on all the cloud as I mentioned, and it has integration to the DevOps. It can be scan every services which is there in the SIEM and SOAR that I was talking about. Okay, once the threats are detected, then we can act accordingly. That's also there, so we can notify to the through Slack. We can integrate with the now service now. Okay, we can send a mail, we can integrate with the logic apps. All these things are already there as part of SOAR. So Azure Monitor, yes, Azure Monitor is like an observability functionality through which we can monitor entire Azure pipeline. Okay, so if any requests are coming, till when it reaches your Azure infrastructure, from there we can get the all the logs. We can get the all the accessibility, what happened, when happened. All the logs can be get within the 30 days time period, because the retention will be always in 30 days. If you wanted to extend, you can extend it, and you need to pay for that, because that is being stored somewhere. Okay, Kusto and all these things, so it will be, you need to take care of that. So that observability, the logs management, everything will be there. You can get it using Azure Monitor. So Azure migrate, as I mentioned, so we have different services. Either it is a physical server, or it's a web server, it's a database server. Doesn't matter. It can support all the operating system. It can support all the types of workload, and it can do the migration for us. And it also has a AI feature for generating the insights for that. So now I will ask my colleague Saurabh to discuss about why quadrant and what about quadrant. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Jitendra. So, I think already we are out of time, so I will just cover the quadrant overview. So, quadrant with the Quadrant is a fast-growing IT services provider, like specialization in the big data, Azure, cloud computing, and like other like app development as well as the AI. So we have total of around 15 plus years of experience, industry experience, we can say, and we are located in almost 10 plus countries. As you can see in the slide, like we have like in the Redmond, USA, Brazil, Dubai, Singapore, and India as well, Hyderabad. And also like we have almost 300 plus professionals around, which like we are having almost like 1500 plus certified professionals on that. So we provide mainly the we are mainly like IT service, so we provide 24 into support to the vendors and the other companies. And here, like as you see, like we are having like the awards, like we are the like top 5 best technology companies to work in the Redmond. And we are continuously like around 50, we got 59 ranked in the Deller Technology Fast 500 North America 2020. And yeah, these are some of the awards. We are also like the Microsoft solution partners as well as the AWS partner. We are also having like HIPAA, as Jitu was discussing previously, and GDPR and like ISO certified. So yeah. Yeah, so Quadrant is like the trusted partner with the Microsoft and the AMD. Like we all know that technologies are moving fast. But at the Quadrant, like we see this as a more than a speed. Like we believe that technologies is a true catalyst for the transformation. We are not just like the tech company. We are like innovations. Like we innovate the things we support. We have like like all the um, funding programs from the Azure innovative part. Like we support like 24 into 7, like the global reach we are having, and then we invest in the success aligning with the local goals to shared resources. So as we gain more the service provider, you gain a dedicated partner as well as you are working with us. So if you are like looking to move fast and move smart to stay ahead and means accelerate the the progress, then we can work together and you can reach out to us in our Quadrant website. Yeah, thank you. So let me, so we do have the questions which we need to answer, Jitendra. I have answered like most of them, but let's start from starting so that each and everyone's are asked. These questions have been answered. Yes, so is this meeting recorded? Yes, this meeting is recorded.
Yes, you can go to YouTube and you can search, get it. Quadrant Technology and live program. You can get this recording as well.
So are they like we are not sure like what questions you are posting, or like it is relevant also or not. I am not able to get that. Even like my team is not able to get that. So if you have any what we say questions or anything, you can personally reach out to us. You can mail us directly on this. Like you are able to see the email link, right? So you can mail us directly in this if you want any specific questions to be answered. So, so how Azure can help you improve the time to market products?
So yeah, Azure provides as we mentioned. So Azure provides the infrastructure to do that. Okay, so there for any organization, they have to focus on infrastructure. They have to thought of developing the product, and they have to go to the market. So Azure already providing the infrastructure for you, and it keeps a streamlined pipeline creation. Okay, which will be automatic deployment, DevOps integration, and all these things. Okay, so just focus on your development of a application, and you can just integrate that using your Azure DevOps, okay, and deploy it to the cloud. That's how you can uh, do more improvement, or you more focus on the application side instead of all this pipeline creation. And yes, as Azure is AI ready, so you can integrate any of the AI features that is there in the like throughout the cloud. You can use that and you can integrate it. Just like example, one of the example I can give you. Everyone is talking about RAG solution, agent AI, agentic AI, and all these things. So if your database is AI ready, just like Postgres is having a AI ready feature called as PG vector, am I right? So the data that we have in our database, I can use it for AI data feature. Okay, if I wanted to use a embeddings and all these things, I can just integrate a Azure AI service into my Postgres database by enabling the PG vector and Azure AI services. I'm good to go. I can create my application as a AI ready application. So that's how you can do market. You can penetrate your market also. Okay, using AI solutions.
Yeah, so
How do
we
you
have
I access?
my current.
Okay, current Linux environment for Azure readiness. Okay, so by default, Microsoft will take care of that as part of our discovery phase, as I mentioned before. So you need to give your server IP address, okay, as part of Azure Migrate, and it will automatically scan how many servers are there, and you need to give the root user credential also, because without that, it cannot able to access the inventory or the software installed on that, because it will check for the compatibility issue also. So these are the things which once you gave it as part of Azure Migrate step, then it will automatically discover that and assess it, and finally it will give you the assessment report for that. Okay, and it will say that what is the readiness approach and all these things. How do I monitor resource utilization on resource monitor? As I said, so Azure Monitor itself will give you the all the resource utilization, as well as you can enable the budgeting. Okay, so if you are configuring the Azure budget or a price calculation thing also, you can do that. So in price calculation also, you can go for the individual VM level, and you can see that how much utilization happen. And if you wanted to get a alert and all these things, then you can configure the budgeting. So if you are budget alert, then automatically it will say that okay, this much you have already used it, or you are going to reach this level, or all these things, all this information that you can get it. Does Azure offer managed database services for Linux app? Yes. So as I mentioned, so Linux apps when you are talking about, I believe so any application like Python or React can be hosted on the Linux. If you are talking about this, yes, Microsoft already provide, as I mentioned already. So your Azure Kubernetes service always run on the top of Linux only. Okay, it is Azure Linux, so no need to worry about the what is the operating system and all these things. You can host your Python, your React application, Angular application on the top of that using a Azure Kubernetes service. Or if you are hosting on the web app also, there will be a Linux version and Windows version. You can select it and you can go for it.
Yeah, and yeah, Azure does offer the managed database like Postgres and other like
Yes,
MySQL to the Linux apps. Yeah,
yes.
just to add it.
Because Microsoft flexible database is already running on the top of Linux only.
Yeah.
Yes, so all the services does not matter. It is a VM or it is a database. It can have a functionality of virtual network. So that's where you can limit your access and all these things. Yes, it can be. So which is called as a private virtual network. Can I predict long-term cost of Azure price calculator? No, price calculator. Azure price calculator is a like okay. Azure calculator. When you are talking about, I believe you are talking about Azure price calculator, which will be a current cost. Yes, there is a AI-driven application. Depending upon your current usage, it can predict. Okay, so in Azure price calculation, I think there is a not Azure price calculation. It is a budgeting section. There is a something called as a predict. Okay, so when you are doing a predict, depending upon your past experience or past uses, it will automatically predict that okay, within a year this will be your cost, or within this month, if you are in the day 10, then it can say you okay, depending on the past and uses, it can be your $60, $70 by month end, like that only it can give you. Are you funding program for
Uh,
Linux? Yes, Azure Migrate and Modernization, as I mentioned, ARM program is there for migration. So for that, you can reach out to the migration. You can send a mail. So our team will reach out to you on that.
yeah.
That is called as ARM program. Yes. How does AMD hardware enhance the virtualization for Linux? So see, this is Linux virtualization. So virtualization is a hardware course concept. Am I right? Linux is the operating system. So behind the scene, so if you are running anything on the hardware which is supporting the virtualization and all these things, it does work. But I'm talking about the performance. So hardware performance point of view, AMD is doing that. Okay, because it is multi-threaded, whereas the Linux sorry, your Intel is a single threaded, so that's where you are getting more performance as compared to the Intel. Can I participate in private preview for Linux feature? uh, when I didn't get you, what does it mean participate in the private preview for the Linux? So it's, if it is a Linux open source technology, then you can contribute using GitHub itself. If you're talking about that, all the private previews and all these things, you can get it there. If yes, you are, if you are looking for the nightly build and all these things within the VM, I don't think so it is available, because all the stable releases will be available in the marketplace itself. Can I use the, yes, spot VMs are the hardwares which will be available. You can install any of the operating system. Doesn't matter it is a Linux workload or Windows workload, but it will be for short term period, as I mentioned. So it can be 8 hours, 10 hours, because it's depend upon if some of the customers are not using that resources. So that's why it's their daytime, nighttime. There are different algorithm behind the scene how it is being allocated, the pricing also. So that's why the spot VMs are very short term VMs. Okay, it's not for long term. It's just like POC kind of things. If I wanted to do, you can use the spot VMs. It's
Yeah,
not
which
recommended for the full fledged
makes sure
workload.
we are not using it for the production.
Full fledged, yes.
Yeah, just make sure of
If you
that.
are
Yeah.
running for the long term, also it will not suggestible. Okay, if you are using for 2 to 3 days, then your storage might not be available, and there will be a lot of issues. It's for short term purpose only. You can use it as a spot VMs. How do I control egress cost for Linux apps? I think in AKS you can configure that, as per my knowledge. Am I right, Saurabh?
Yes. Even though like in the by setting the networking part there, will be having various options to control these things.
Yeah, you can use the Terraform for that, for configuring all these things. And yes, egress, I think you are talking about the network traffic and all these things. So there will be a bandwidth consumption. So depending upon your bandwidth, it will be costing you. It's not like
Yes.
100% cost. Yes. Can I use the yes? It's for universal. Any services that we have a NSG rule, we have a networking, same concept. These are the network concept, right? So you can configure NSG for all the Linux, Windows, database service, everything. Can you share examples of how organization can reduce operational costs for post migration? Yes, as I mentioned. So let's see, someone is already running their resources for 24/7, okay, in their on-prem. So same thing they wanted to replicate it in the cloud. So in that case, what will happen? Let's see, I have take it as a 16 core, 64 GB RAM. Okay, so but in night time I don't have that much traffic. So why should I run it? So what I can do, I can configure some matrices like, okay, 20% or 30% of CPU utilization, then reduce by 50%. So what will happen? I have to pay only for 8 hours or 10 hours for the full workload, and the next 16 hours for a reduced load. Okay, that is one way. The second thing is that you can use it as a RI plans, as I was talking about. So if you are using pay as you go, that is possible. You can reduce it and do it. But if you are using a RI plan, then there is no difference for you, because you are paying 3 year for the same configuration. If you are reducing also, there will be no cost reduction. Okay, so please make sure that whenever you are using that, please make sure that, okay, if you are in pay as you go, you can avail all these options. Okay, scale it up, scale down, and all these things. Are there funding and incentive program for the Microsoft? I think I already mentioned. So it's a ARM program is there. So yeah, our team can reach out to you if you have any query on that. You can reply to this migration at Quadrant Technology. How can Azure and partners like Quadrant support business during post migration optimization? So yes, so for migration there are different programs supported by Microsoft and we as a partner. But yeah, if you specifically required after migration, yes, we do support, but there will be charges for that. Our business team can let you know all this information for that, depending upon workload also. How does Linux on Azure align with the long-term IT modernization? Linux on Azure. Okay, so behind the scene, as I said that, okay, Linux, if you are using any PaaS services or SaaS services, then Linux on Azure will be being managed by the Microsoft as part of that. If you are using a infrastructure as a service, only the thing is that you can get the secret patches. Okay, and the latest version that you are upgrading, it will be automatically upgraded with the best security policy and all these things. But if you are using on the top of this one, like AKS and all these things, then automatically Microsoft will take care for you. How can Linux based application hosted on Azure meet? Okay, so GDPR and all these things, yes, Linux based application, when you are talking about any application does not contain any data. If it is your database, so Microsoft has the compliance policy or encryption policy for that. Okay, so usually application does not contain any data. Instead of that, the database is already holding the data, so that's why that should be compliant. So if it is in European region, then by default the GDPR will be applicable. If it is in India, it might not be. So that's how it is. Okay, and most of the ISO certification are already by default there, so that's why it is compliant by default. Usually application will not be require those things. Are there licensing option for commercial license? Yes, Azure Hybrid is there. So if you don't have the license, you can purchase it from there. If you don't have purchase license, then you can purchase it from the Microsoft itself. Because Microsoft, whenever you are selecting that, it will be. Can I enforce MFA for Linux system access? Uh, uh, I don't think so. Okay, because MFA is not for the individual system access. It's for your login credential only. It's a identity level credential. Are there bring your license options? Yes, that's called as Azure Hybrid Plan. Can small and medium business also benefit? Also benefits. Yes, it's for everyone, am I right? Depending upon your workload and uses, it will be. What role does Linux migration play in your organization cloud first strategy? So the thing is that if you are planning to migrate your any workload from on-prem to cloud, you will get the advantage of scalability. You will get the availability, disaster, all these 4 points that we discussed before. So that we will get it as a first priority, am I right? So all the features that cloud we will get it, it will be all automatically there for you. What business risks are associated with the delaying the Linux migration? Yes. So here the key things that as I mentioned, so hardware upgradation, security patches upgradation. So these are the key challenges every organization faces whenever they are doing in the on-prem infrastructure. So you will get rid of this. And though it is in cloud, Microsoft, if it is you are going with the PaaS solution or SaaS solution, then Microsoft will take care of that thing. Na? No need to worry about it. How does Quadrant ensure minimal business disruption during the migration phase? Okay, so basically, so that's where the plan stage will come into picture. As part of that, we discussed, okay, there is a discovery, then assessment, then plan. So during this plan phase, we will try to minimize as much as minimal downtime for the business to be uh, it will be there for the migration phase. So if you are doing it, so then there will be online mode, there is offline mode. So depending upon the business criticality, we will decide which way to go. After that, the only usually we did a migration for one of the largest healthcare unit in India, which is the Asia's biggest migration. Okay, and we did it. So it took half an hour downtime for the entire migration, but the migration was running for almost 6 months. So just see that. So it is a seamless way. So the 6 month timeline, we didn't do any downtime, but only the half an hour or 1 hour we took it for the make it live to switching from the on-prem to cloud. So that's how you can do the minimal business disruption. Business adopt hybrid and multi-cloud approach in their Linux workload. How does Okay, so it depend upon the cloud scenario. One of the scenario that I was talking about, okay, some of the customer they want their data to be there in the on-prem, whereas their application they want it as a scalable as much as possible. So they did that approach where it can be some of the databases are there in on-prem or in some different cloud, and they wanted to use the Azure features as a part of application deployment, your monitoring and all these things. So there we have helped them as a part of Azure Arc integration or Azure Stack integration, all these things. How does Quadrant support incident response planning for the Linux? uh, Quadrant does not support incident response management and all these things. Yes, we can have a integration. Like if your organization is already using a service now or any specific incident tool or Jenkins or ticketing tools, then we can support you guys or we can help you guys to configure that support or incident ticket management using this. Security certification or framework Quadrant follows. So, like as Saurabh mentioned, we have all the certificates required for that, and our professionals are already Microsoft certified professional. Okay, they are migration specialist like us, me and Saurabh. So we are migration specialist. There are some certificates Microsoft provide. By doing actual migration, then only they will certify the customer, am I right, or vendors. So we are partners for that. So we have all the certifications required for that. How does Quadrant help implement security automation? Yes, so as I mentioned, so we can configure Sentinel for you, we can configure Defender for that. Okay, we can configure your Azure monitoring. If you have any third party integration like email alerts, all these things, we can integrate all the services to these services. We can help you in there for integrating those things. What tools or methodologies does Quadrant use to uh, okay, so Quadrant follow uses the Azure Migrate for any infrastructure migration tool. If you have any database migration and all these things, Quadrant has uses Azure database migration tool or data migration Azure DMS, as well as we have our own proprietary tool called QMigrator for any kind of database migration. Okay, so it is from anywhere to anywhere. Does not matter it is a Linux or it is a Azure or AWS or GCP. Anywhere to anywhere we can do the migration, and it is heterogeneous database migration also. We do support that.
Yeah, Jitu, I think all the questions have been answered.
Okay, thanks everyone for joining the session. It's nice to talk to you, and we got the huge number of questionnaires also. I think we
Yeah.
answered well.
Yeah, even if the
Thanks
questions
everyone.
are not answered, please reach out to us on this mail ID. It is getting displayed on the screen. We will get back to you as soon as possible. Yeah.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you, everyone.